I've written a book called The Social Media MBA, and I work for Sky News. I write features about technology trends. And today, as we've heard, I'm going to reveal how corporations could incorporate social in the kind of everyday, day-to-day business activities. We have about 15 minutes or so. I appreciate everyone's hungry. I think we're running late a little bit, so 15, 20 minutes. If you want to follow me or comment anything, there's a Twitter handle there. Feel free to engage that way. Jumping straight into it, when I'm out speaking to marketing professionals and ask them to describe how they position themselves and how they think of themselves when it comes to managing social media, a lot of the times I get this kind of impression. I'm the captain, I decide what channels we should be on, I decide when we do Facebook campaigns. I am social media. But I think there's two problems with that. And that's been one of the key messages that I've been trying to hammer on about this year. That social media, and this can be controversial, so please don't be offended. I'm just trying to start some discussion here. Social media can't be owned by marketing. This cannot be marketing professionals' view of social media. We need to move on from that. Problem with this is that if you in marketing believe that I own social media, you forget that other departments can benefit and leverage social media, so you may not engage with them. The second thing is, if the business believes, if you do a good enough job telling the world this is how social media should be run, they're going to sort of take a step back and think, you know what, I don't, as a sales professional, as a customer service professional, as a business development professional, I don't need to engage with social because marketing's got that covered. I don't think that's true, and I think that's something we need to change. So this is a picture I think we should embrace instead, an alternative view of how social media should be perceived by the marketing department. So working alongside your colleagues rather than sort of ahead of them. And that's sort of the key message really for this presentation. How do you incorporate your colleagues in your work? This is the book. It's an Amazon UK bestseller. In fact, it was one of the 5 most bought books about social media in the beginning of the year. And what's unique about the book is that it's not me telling you how to do social media. It's actually a collection of stories, a collection of case studies from companies that some might actually be in this room, or companies that we admire, or companies that are doing cool and interesting stuff that we may not have heard of, but that we could benefit from knowing more about or learning from. Some of these brands are case studies. Some of them are brands I've been working with on an ongoing basis for kickoffs, for internal training, for coaching. And some of them are featured in my new book, which is the sequel to the first one. But enough plugging from my part there. It's kind of funny. You don't get rich selling books, by the way. I think I get 10% net on sale, which is about 50p. So even if everyone in this room bought a book, it wouldn't make much of a difference. So again, I'm not plugging it for that reason. So again, just to reiterate, what am I hoping to cover in this session? Obviously, how to incorporate social, but specifically looking at some sort of variations of that. Before we jump into kind of the details of this message, I think it's important to take a step back and understand the social media is actually a journey, and we're on that journey, all of us, as consumers and as corporations. This is a really good model that I like, because it kind of identifies those steps that businesses usually go through, or I believe should be going through. On the very fundamental level, we have basically people in a room getting together and saying, you know, we need a social media strategy. You know, that's good. Basics, tick box, foundation sorted. We also need policies. Who should be allowed to use Twitter? What should we be saying? And what are the kind of guidelines? And as marketing professionals, we might be sort of initiating that process. We might be providing the training. We might be sourcing tools, etc. So that's the kind of foundation. We then move on to the next stage. When you start to scale this up, because that's the vision, right? If you are embarking on this grand journey and you see the value is going to be increased sales or increased brand recognition, whatever it is, as you scale that up, because that's what you will be doing, you might recognize that, you know what, safety can become an issue. We need to control this. We need to introduce a team, someone that has ownership of this process. Crisis management might be something that you want to introduce at this stage. What happens when something backfires? We've seen examples. I mean, O2, I think, is a great one quite recently, a few months ago. What happens when things go wrong? And the third stage, which is the one we're going to focus on today, because I appreciate everyone is in different stages on this journey. It's really about, okay, how do we consolidate now? We have laid the groundwork. We've started doing this. We're scaling it up. And now what? How do we take it to the next level? So I want to focus on creating a center of excellence. And that really is answering the question that I set out to answer in the beginning. How do you incorporate social in your business? Well, I think this is the first thing you should do, unless you've already done it. You should take steps towards creating a center of excellence. So there are different ways of organizing these centers of excellence. Here's 5 examples. The first one is decentralized. That's almost saying that we don't have a center. We let people kind of get on and do their own thing, and social media is very unstructured. Some people will kind of do their own thing, sales go off and do something, marketing might do something, but it's not really controlled or managed in any way. So the other extreme is the centralized version, which is more or less the kind of horror picture I was trying to illustrate in the beginning, when marketing says, you know, I'm the captain, I'm in control, I'm going to tell everyone what they're going to do, and that's the end of the story. And obviously, this is a very popular and common way of organizing businesses today, so I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of companies are using it. The other one that we see and seen far more success in is this approach called hub and spoke. So you create this center in the middle, and their job is not to deliver and execute necessarily, but it's to educate the business. So they disseminate information throughout the organization, and inside this unit you have representatives from those different components, those different units. Multiple hub and spoke is for kind of bigger global companies, which will kind of do this, but on a bigger scale. And the last model is the holistic approach, which is very controversial and very out there. Basically, everyone does social media. And this wouldn't be recommended for established large corporation, but it works really well for smaller startups or for very tech-savvy businesses where people in the business kind of get social straight away, and they can kind of get away with it. There was a survey done in the US last year, 2011, and it kind of revealed the percentages of who's doing what in regards to this organization. So these are the numbers that came from that. As you can see, centralized still has a lot of popularity. Hub and spoke, very popular. Holistic, not so popular. So what this says to us is that there are lots of ways to organize and manage social media throughout your business to make it a part of the way you live and breathe. But the most successful model, the one that's most commonly adopted, is hub and spoke. And again, it centers around creating a center of excellence. So moving from the abstract into the more concrete, one of the companies I work with is Honda Europe. Simon Nicholson is the social media manager there. He's recently appointed. And his challenge was the fact that he faced a very disjointed organization when he took charge a year ago, so 6 months ago. Honda, as we know, they sell cars, but they're actually the world's largest manufacturers of motorbikes. And they have a problem in the fact that they have lots of different products, lots of different markets, different languages, different, you know, you can just imagine it's a massive kind of beast to manage from a social media point of view, and everyone's sort of doing their own thing. So the challenge for him really was, do I let them carry on doing what they're doing, i.e. being independent, or should I try to introduce some elements of central control? And, well, the solution, surprise, surprise, it was to introduce this notion of a center of excellence. And this really comes from the fact that his social media strategy is all about developing one-to-one relationships with his clients. Because that's another thing that adds complexity to his product, and I'm sure it will be similar for the products or services you're offering. It's you want one kind of message when you're thinking about buying a bike or a car, and you want another message when you're buying it, and you want a different message once you've purchased it. I don't know if it's true, but I heard somewhere that in the US, car makers spend more money on trying to make you happy and comfortable about the car you purchased than actually selling you that new car, because that's equally as important to maintain and develop that kind of loyalty and relationship as we all know. So anyways, the council was put together, and the success is really a proof in the pudding. So before, disjointed, everyone was sort of doing their own thing. Today, for the first time, they have rolled out a global social listening tool and practices, and more importantly, they have kind of enabled local businesses to take that information. There was some talk about big data earlier. So yeah, it's all well and good capturing information and listening, but what do you actually do with it? Well, someone in Germany had a good idea. Well, let's spread that across Europe, and that's exactly what they did. This could not have been possible with that disjointed original organization. Facebook application. Actually, I gave myself a challenge a while ago to see if I could go through an entire presentation about social media without mentioning Facebook and Twitter, and I was going to say I was trying to do that today. I fell into my own trap, but it's difficult. But anyways, Facebook application templates, things to make speed up processes when local companies, local businesses are rolling out activities. And again, more importantly, now they have a consolidated view of what's happening and how efficient campaigns are on a pan-European level. So again, that's center of excellence in operation. The second element that I was asked to touch on was how social media has had an impact on customer interaction. And I appreciate two of the sponsors today was Oracle and SAP, which provides great tools for corporations to manage customers. There's another company out there, and this is not to plug them, but this is, I went to a conference, and they happen to be the organizers, so they happen to be name-dropping their own products, etc. But they are showing a really cool example of how Virgin America is using social to connect with their customers. And this is a 15-minute long video, and obviously I'm not going to show you all of it, but I'm going to show you 3 minutes of it, and it sort of starts halfway into this presentation, and it kind of goes straight into the key, which is the day of the life, what's the expression? Day of a life in a day, of one of the employees at Virgin America, and how he organizes his day and how he provides customer service through social channels. But it's with a twist, so bear with me. I was blown away when I saw this.
Because it's a platform. Here we have Sherman Brown. He's an operations manager for Virgin America. His job is to create customer success for those guests, as you saw in the video, those people who are flying on those flights. Let's take a look at Sherman's day. Let's go and look at his day by looking at the feed, because Sherman works in the feed. That's where he does his job. We have the photos in the feed, we got videos, but you know what else we have in the feed? Because you asked for it, we have polls. Take a look at this. The employees of Virgin America did a poll. They want to know amongst each other, where do you think we should do the next hub? There's a great hub here in San Francisco. If it's up to the employees, the next one's going to be in Miami. Pretty cool. But let's keep working through his day. Here we see there's a delay, a flight delay, flight 351. Okay, that's a really big deal. Sherman now has to get to work. He has to get to work because his job is customer success, as we said earlier. Let's click through and let's look at that flight. We can see it's going from San Francisco to Boston. Let's see who's on that flight. Now let's click through. We can see the social profiles, actually, of all of these passengers. But you know what? The most important one is that person sitting in first class there, Phil Abbott. Phil, let's take a look at his social profile. Let's actually open it up a little bit more, Dan. Thank you.
I'm going to stay here.
In his social profile, we have everything we need to know about him. We can see that he's got that Elevate Gold status, a very important customer of Virgin America. He flies Virgin a lot. We can also see the flight history. Where has he flown? But because this social profile is open, because it's open, we also see those social networks, the other consumer social networks. We see Twitter, Facebook. Here's something really great that is very important. Heading to Cabo on Virgin America. Excited to celebrate my sales club achievement with a few margs. For those of you who don't know what margs are, they're margaritas. He's a salesperson. And you know what? If you're a salesperson in the audience, you know how upset he's going to be when he gets off that plane in San Francisco. He misses the connecting flight. He's going to miss his friends in Cabo. He's going to miss the awards ceremony. Who knows what he's going to miss? Now let's get to work. Sherman's going to get to work, and he's going to deliver incredible customer service through this platform. We're going to create a customized flight map placard. And you know what we're going to do with this? We're going to have an iPad held up by a teammate in San Francisco. That's right. They're going to hold up that iPad. It's going to have his picture on it. That way he knows, hey, it's for me. And it's going to have a little map. And that map is, this is where you need to get to, Phil, to your next flight, because we are going to make sure you make it to that sales club. So now we have that file created, and it was created right within Chatter. You saw that. We never had to...
So then he kind of goes on and on about this. But what's interesting here is they're obviously trying to monitor passengers and give it very, very customized, bespoke customer service. And what actually happens, which is the cool twist at the end, but it's so far into the video, I won't go there. He's sitting in the plane. Obviously, they're doing this in the background. He's sitting in the plane, and all of a sudden his display in front of him kind of lights up, and it's a message from this guy that we were kind of monitoring here, the customer service agent, telling him that unfortunately, because of the delay, we have to do this and this. And then they show this image where he needs to get to when he gets out of the plane, and the fact there will be someone escorting him, etc. So I think that's a great example of how a company can use social media to engage more efficiently with customers. A really cool, different example. Another element that I was asked to touch on was sort of to showcase some examples that successes we've seen. And again, going back to this notion that marketing can't own social media because it's not just about customers, here's another kind of view on that. Some of you might have heard about Employee Storm from Dell. So this is social media internally, or social media for product development. They're basically reaching out to all the tens of thousands of people working for Dell saying, hey, if you've got a great idea, let us know. Some people traditionally have email inboxes you send to a IDs tray or something. This is slightly more social media friendly in the sense that you can see what others have posted, you can vote on things people have posted on, and the product developers can interact with the poster, etc. So it's almost like a mini Facebook, I suppose, but for employees, and very specifically geared toward product development. And I think once they've launched, they had about over 4,000 IDs come in almost straight away, and they had over 200,000 comments made by employees around the world. So a really cool way, a different way of kind of thinking of social media beyond marketing and consumer-driven activities. Another thing that I am asked quite often about is B2B, does that really work? I think this is a brilliant example. ARM is a chip manufacturer. They supply the chips in the iPhones, for example, and the iPads. They have very few clients, but the clients they have spend billions and billions of dollars, the likes of Apple. So how should they engage in social media? And they launched a highly specialized YouTube channel. Although YouTube is very mass market, etc., you wouldn't necessarily find this channel or make your way to the channel unless you knew what the products they were selling and it was something you were interested in. I think the testimony is that they have over 5 million views on something. Again, remembering they have a couple of hundred customers here. That's a good example of how social media needs to kind of extend beyond kind of this traditional view of the world. Another view is creating a business from the ground up to be social. This is a company in India called fopping.com. And it kind of recognizes the social currency that a popular person might have. So it's a retail shop combined with a social media experience. So the more friends you have, the more followers you have, the cheaper the products in the store will be. The thinking being, obviously, if you're a popular girl, popular guy, you buy a cool pair of shorts or shoes or whatever, you'll talk about that. And obviously the reward for the company to have that talked about to more people is greater than less people. So they'll give you a discount in proportion to that value. And there's a lot of talk about how do you value social media. Well, these people have a pretty accurate appreciation of that. Another great way of sort of, for your benefit in terms of, what can we do, what's the next thing, is to look abroad. This is similar shopping online, Chinese company. They let their customers create their own retail shop, curate products from the shop that the retailer is offering. And then obviously the users are then driving traffic to their own page instead of to the retailer's page. So there was a lot of talk about having shops on Facebook. Didn't really work out. Seems like people didn't want to shop when they were on Facebook. So this is sort of taking that notion that people are likely to be influenced by their friends to buy stuff to the next level. Let's create a new experience. So again, this is not about marketing. This is almost like fundamentally rethinking, engaging customer service, engaging marketing, product development, and kind of going beyond that, really. The last thing I want to touch on was how can you justify the power of social to the senior executives. And one thing that I think is a good example, we talk about ROI a lot, and we think of it as return on investment, obviously. But another way of thinking it is return of ignorance. What's the business value for not engaging with social? And one sort of nuance of that is thinking about social media crisis that we touched on earlier. Here's a chart of the number of social media crises that have erupted in the US sort of on a massive scale. And as you can see, they're only going to become more and more frequent as more and more people are engaging with these channels. You're going to lose more control. Another thing on the ROIs, different perspectives on it. And one that I like is thinking about it from the view of KPIs. So rather than pennies, what about more abstract things like share of voice or user engagement. And these slides will be available on the website afterwards. So you can download them if you need some inspiration in terms of alternative metrics. But again, if you want to impress your senior leadership team, make sure you're speaking their language. If you're using ROI metrics, great. Maybe introduce some KPI metrics as well, and kind of speak to them at their own level. And as you can see, there's a number of ways of slicing and dicing this. Here are 3 other ways of measuring advocacy and the value of that. And also, from a customer service point of view, here are some metrics with regards to how that is generating value for the business. So I'm not going to go into it. We don't have time. Next time, I can talk about that next time. So to sum things up, we need to move away from this view of the world that we are the captains. We need to stand side by side to our peers. We need to invite the departments, all the departments in the business. And what we can do, what will kind of allow us to remain in control, is that we as marketeers, if that's what we do, are the ones initiating. That will kind of make people gravitate to us anyways, and it kind of still means that we run the show a little bit, but we're definitely coming across to being much more generous about information. And that's all I had to say on how to create success building social businesses.